So you're thinking about rebuilding your engine but not replacing the crank bearings? Yeah. We need to talk about that because skipping those bearings can turn into a why did I even bother kind of situation. Oh, and quick thing. Most of the folks watching right now aren't subscribed. If you like real-world car advice without the sugarcoating, tap that subscribe before you forget. Now, first off, let's make sure we're on the same page. Crank bearings are those smooth little half-moon shells that sit between your crankshaft and the engine block. Their whole job is to keep the crank spinning smoothly without grinding metal on metal. When they wear down, even a little, your oil pressure suffers, your crankshaft takes a beating, and you start hearing knocks that aren't the good kind. If you skip replacing them during a rebuild, you're basically building a house on a cracked foundation. Everything might look fresh. New pistons, shiny head, maybe even new gaskets. But deep down, the heart of the engine still has the same old weak spots. I've seen engines run fine for a few months after this, and then, bang. A spun bearing, scored crank journals, and you're right back in the garage pulling it apart. Now I get it. Maybe the crank looks okay, and you're trying to save time or money, but here's the thing. You can't always see wear with your eyes. You've got to measure it. That's where something like Plastigauge comes in. It's this little strip you stick between the crank and the bearing, torque it down, and then check the squish to see your clearance. If the clearance is out of spec, even by a hair, that bearing has to go. And here's another thing. Even if the old bearings still measure good, they've already been married to that crank. They've worn into each other's shape. Once you disturb that setup by taking the crank out or machining the block, you risk misalignment or uneven pressure. New bearings are cheap insurance compared to tearing down an engine twice. I had a buddy, Mike, who thought he'd be clever and reuse his bearings on a budget build. He dropped the rebuilt engine in, it ran smooth for about 200 miles. Then he calls me saying his oil light came on and the engine was knocking like it owed him money. Pulled it apart, bearings were wiped, crank was toast. He ended up spending more than if he'd just done it right from the start. Also, keep in mind, when you rebuild, you're usually cleaning or replacing oil passages, pumps, seals. If you leave worn bearings in there, you're bottlenecking the oil system. Less oil film means more heat and friction, and that means faster wear on every other moving part in there. So yeah, could you rebuild without replacing crank bearings? Technically, yes. Would I recommend it? Not a chance. It's like replacing your car's paint without fixing the rust underneath. Looks good for a while, but you're just covering up a problem. Alright, quick recap. Crank bearings are cheap, they protect the most expensive part of your engine, and once you're in there, it's way easier to swap them than to risk a full teardown later. Don't gamble on old bearings unless you like throwing money and weekends into the garage for no reason. If this helped you think twice about skipping those bearings, hit that like button, and if you've got a rebuild horror story, or maybe you got away with reusing them, drop it in the comments. I love hearing those it'll be fine stories. And hey, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next time I save someone from a driveway disaster.